My name's Guy Magnesium. I'm a nutrition detective. It was a cold night in San Diego and business was slow. I was about to head home to my lonely North Park apartment and beat myself to sleep with a bottle of kombucha. That's when she walked in.
Magnesium?
Don't need it, I've been eating beans all day.
You're Guy Magnesium? The famous nutrition detective? Who solved the case of the missing hot dog? Mr. Magnesium, I've always wondered where you found that hot dog.
Trust me, you don't want to know.
Lola claimed that someone was poisoning her produce with toxic pesticides. She also said that a man named Dr. Mark Kern knew more about it than he let on. I told her I'd take the case.
Oh, Mr. Magnesium, you have no idea how grateful I am. Somehow, I already feel as if this hand dream is wholesome and pure, even though I know it's loaded with pesticides.
I decided to call on my brother. An eminent toxicologist, he had recently helped me prove that Professor Smith was murdered by a pygmy with a curare arrow. As I made the long drive from North Park to South Park, I tried to think about pesticides, but all I could think about was Lola. She was a real knockout, a natural blonde with curves in all the right places. David and I don't speak much. We're completely unalike. Sometimes it's hard to believe we're brothers.
Good Lord, what a mess. I'm rather busy. I'm in the middle of building a bomb shelter right now. I hope it's stocked with bourbon, but I'm not here to talk about my drinking problem. I have some questions about dietary pesticide exposure. Since when is a hard-drinking PI worried about pesticides? Since never. I'm working on a case. Well, let's start with a little background. Pesticides are regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA approves or denies new pesticides based on a risk-benefit assessment. If the pesticide is approved, the EPA sets a tolerance level. What's that? It's the maximum level of a certain pesticide that's considered safe for human consumption. How is it calculated? They can't test pesticides on humans for ethical reasons, so they give them to lab rats to determine the lowest dose that has a negative effect. But how can they know that pesticides will have the same effect on humans as rats? They can't be completely sure, so they reduce the tolerance by a factor of 10 to account for the differences between humans and rats. But they can't, not all humans are the same either. For example, children might well be more susceptible than adults, so they reduce the tolerance by another factor of 10. That sounds pretty strict. Is there any evidence of people being harmed by pesticides? Well, every year in America, more than 10,000 farm workers are poisoned through exposure to excess levels of pesticides. And although farmers generally live longer than the general population, they do have higher rates of Parkinson's disease and certain cancers that might be caused by pesticide exposure. Yes, but there's a difference between occupational and dietary exposure. Certainly. As we toxicologists say, the dose makes the poison. You can kill a lab rat by giving it too much table salt, aspirin, or caffeine, even though people consume those substances every day. And on the flip side, if you give a rat a minuscule dose of a very harmful poison, like arsenic, it will be fine. So why do people buy organic food? People believe organic produce is healthier because it contains more nutrients and fewer pesticides than conventional produce. Does it actually contain more nutrients? That's difficult to say for certain. Most studies have found that the differences in nutrient content are small or non-existent. But it is free of pesticides, right? Not entirely free, because organic crops get contaminated by pesticides drifting in from nearby conventional farms. But organic food does contain much lower doses of pesticides. One study found that when preschoolers were switched from conventional to organic produce, the levels of organophosphate pesticide byproducts in their urine were dramatically reduced. So eating organic is a good way to reduce your intake of chemicals? Synthetic chemicals, yes, but plants also produce chemicals. In fact, a biochemist at UC Berkeley named Bruce Ames estimated that 99.99% of all pesticides in the American diet are made by the plants themselves. Are you talking about GMOs? No, just ordinary crops. As one example, a cup of organic coffee contains over 1,000 naturally occurring chemical compounds, including at least 10 milligrams of carcinogens. That's over 100 times the amount of carcinogens that we consume as a result of pesticides on our food. And the number may well be higher, because while synthetic pesticides have to be tested by the government, the vast majority of naturally occurring chemicals have never been investigated to determine whether they cause cancer, birth defects, or other negative health problems. So it sounds like coffee is pretty bad for you. It does sound that way, but I've only given you half the story. See, coffee also contains many compounds that protect against cancer, and so do other foods. One study, which followed 43,000 men and women for 10 years, found that those who drank coffee had a higher risk of lung cancer, but a lower risk of other cancers. Most importantly, their overall cancer risk was unchanged. So what exactly should I take away from this discussion? Both conventional and organic produce is associated with many health benefits, including lower risk of heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. So if money's an issue, you're probably better off eating 2 conventionally grown apples than 1 organic apple. Thanks, brother. Next time I'll come, I'll bring a bottle of bourbon. Make sure you do. We'll toast to our survival of the impending nuclear holocaust.
I went to see Dr. Kern. I wore an elaborate disguise to catch him off guard.
Good evening, Dr. Kern. I'm a simple Amish farmer by the name of Jebediah Hirschenberg.
Cut the theatrics, Magnesium. I'm a busy man.
All right. Well, Dr. Kern, what do you know about pesticides?
I could tell you they're harmful to pests.
And what about people?
Every year, hundreds of people die by getting tangled in their own bed sheets. Did you know that?
Dr. Kern, are you threatening me?
No, you idiot. I'm pointing out that everything has risks, but there are many modifiable risk factors that kill far more people than pesticides. Overeating, not exercising, alcohol, tobacco, food poisoning.
Wait, tobacco as in cigarettes?
I know it's hard to believe, but there's growing evidence that smoking causes cancer. In fact, I believe that by the 21st century, doctors will no longer be allowed to smoke in the maternity ward.
Brave new world, huh, Doc?
Certainly. Now, if you'll excuse me.
One more thing, Dr. Kern. Have you seen this woman?
No, but she has a family resemblance to a man who came to my office last week and demanded that I denounce conventionally grown produce. I refused, of course. His claims weren't supported by science.
Did he go away angry?
Yeah, but that doesn't worry me. I meet a lot of cranks in this line of work. Now I really must get back to grading Nutrition 201 homework. Goodbye, Mr. Magnesium.
Good day to you, sir.
Dr. Kern seemed to be on the up and up, but there was only one way to know for sure. 2 hours later, Kern left the ENS building and started walking toward West Commons. As I was making my way toward his office, I got a nasty surprise.
I have a warning for you. Who do you work for? See what happens to guys who ask too many questions?
They get a complimentary gift basket.
They get graded.
This was it, the smoking gun, definitive proof that conventionally grown produce was poison, the final vindication of Dr. Mercola, the food babe, and the health ranger Mike Adams. I opened Dr. Kern's top secret file and found coupons for Diet Mountain Dew. The entire investigation had been a wild goose chase. The next day was Thursday, so I went to the farmer's market to buy a gluten-free cupcake. Standing there was the thug who had threatened me with a grater the evening before. Suddenly it all made sense. He'd had a nice racket selling organic oranges for $5 a pop. Then he started thinking how much more he could make if he could get Dr. Kern to say that conventional produce was poisonous. When Kern wouldn't play ball, he used his sister Lola to get me to dig up dirt on Kern, but there wasn't any dirt, just some expired soft drink coupons. I never saw the orange man again. I didn't see Lola again either. Dr. Kern and I teamed up to solve the case of the missing Mountain Dew, but that's another story.
That they were talking, or that who do you work for?
Cut the neck.
Wait a second, let me make sure.
Every year, millions of people get tangled in. It's not millions. It's not.
Do you recognize this woman?
No, but she has a family resemblance to a man. Keep to. Did not expect that.